Good morning. 96,000 jobs were added in the economy last month, but that was well below what economists expected. Our own Fox Business reporter Rich Edson live at the Labor Department now with more on this disappointing report. Rich?
And Robert, if you look at private sector job growth, only 103,000, about half of what the ADP reported showed yesterday. The unemployment rate falls to 8.1%, but that's because so many folks had left the labor force. And you go even further back, the Department of Labor featured some revisions in this report for June and July, showing the economy created 41 fewer thousand jobs than had originally been stated by the Department of Labor over the last couple of months. The labor force falls by 368,000. The reason that the unemployment rate mostly fell for last month, so that's not good news. The participation rate falls 0.2% to 63.5%, the lowest in a generation, and the employment population ratio at 58.3%, that falling as well to 0.1%. Just go over some of the sectors here. Manufacturing falling by 15,000, durable goods accounting for 17,000 of that. Government sheds 7,000 jobs. The federal government adding 3,000, state governments losing 6,000. The job growth in leisure and hospitality, 34,000. Of that, 28,000 is for food and beverage service. Professional and business services falling 28,000. And typically in the summer, you'll see an increase in temporary help services, or that's an indication that perhaps more people will be coming in as full-time workers. Not the case here. That sector, temporary help services, falling nearly 5,000 jobs. Healthcare adding 17,000. Finance and industry, 11,000, and construction, 1,000. Just one more point here, Robert. Sometimes we look at hourly earnings and the work week to see, okay, maybe people are working longer hours. Maybe that'll be an indication we'll start to bring some more people on. Not the case here. Hourly earnings falling 1 cent, and the average work week remains unchanged at 34.4 hours. Back to you.
All right, Rich, thanks so much. And for more reaction on the August jobs report, let's bring in Ray Hennessy, Director of Business News here at Fox Business. And Ray, it's hard to characterize it any other way than disappointing and almost the opposite of what we got last month. It disappoints, and the prior 2 months revised lower, whereas last time we saw revisions higher. What's your takeaway?
Well, what I'm afraid of, Robert, is you actually should be seeing these kind of numbers while you're still in a recession, right? Or toward the end of a recession, or maybe when you just came out. We've actually been out of a recession for a while, so you should see more job acceleration than we're seeing. And what I'm afraid of is that for whatever reason, call it government policy or the nature of the past recession or what have you, the nature of the American workforce is changing. We should not be a country at this part of the economic cycle where so many people are leaving the workforce. The worst number that we've been reporting is that 63.5% labor force participation rate. That means that well over a third of the country that could be working isn't working. Now, some of them aren't working because they're out there looking for a job, but fewer of that percentage aren't working because they can't find a job. More of that percentage are working because they're not looking for a job. And this is a country that's built on free enterprise. And you can't have a country built on free enterprise where the people who came up in that system choose not to work. And I feel bad. I'm sure there's discouraged, but you just have a very, very discouraged workforce. And that speaks, put economic policy aside, just the fabric of the nation changes when you get to that point. So it's very troubling, and you kind of worry about whether or not that creates systemic problems in the labor force that we're going to have to deal with for years and years to come. It's just a very abysmal, depressing report. Yeah, and to your point, it takes us back to, the fall of 1981, the last time we saw a 63.5% participation rate. And on the other hand, investors watching the market, we saw the futures drop. They jumped. Now they're pretty much sitting right where they were. The expectations that Ben comes in here. Right. Well, you know why people are buying in. They're buying in because now they feel like Ben Bernanke has no choice but to go with QE3. We've got to print more money. But Robert, think of the implications of that. Sure, there's a short-term trade that says that that's positive, but we should not be in the third round of quantitative easing where we're looking to Ben Bernanke to bail us out of things. Something has to come. Even Bernanke, when in his speech in Jackson Hole was saying, there's only so much I can do. We need some fiscal policy changes that need to come through, and we're not seeing that. We're not seeing plans going into effect. We're not seeing anything. We've had stimulus after stimulus after stimulus and traders like that. But you know what? Stimulus hasn't worked. It's not working. We need sort of a a couple of new ideas here, because the old ideas really from all across the political spectrum haven't worked, because we should not be seeing numbers like this, and you shouldn't see the changes in the populace and attitude be like this where we are in the economic cycle.
And Rich mentioning it, the average hourly wages falling while you have, inflation out there, and savers, of course, being penalized with lower rates. And it looks like that will continue, the dollar falling as well. What's that going to do for consumer spending and the attitudes?
Well, it's a very good point, because you're in a situation now where people are making, the few people who have a job are making what they made before, but everything that they're buying, the prices are going up. So even the people who have a job can't feel better off because their dollar is going less to the things that they need to buy. So that speaks to this whole debate about, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? For most people, whether you have a job or not, the answer based on these numbers is probably no.
And if you look at the markets, most individuals we know have been moving away from stocks even as they've been rising, and that's the way it tends to go. Ray, thanks so much for joining us. Ray Hennessy, the Director of Business News at Fox Business. Now, if you're just